The smartest plan is not the one that works perfectly. It is the one that survives being wrong. Because in money, being almost right can still destroy you if you leave no room for error. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're completely tearing down a myth that is practically hardwired into how we think about our finances, and we're doing it by diving straight into Morganhousel's brilliant concepts from the psychology of money.
You know, we spend our whole lives trying to build that one perfect spreadsheet, the absolutely flawless investment strategy, the ultimate plan. But treating money like it's physics, where exact inputs always give you exact outputs, is just a total recipe for disaster. We're constantly chasing perfection in our financial modeling. But here's the thing, perfection assumes a predictable world. And let's be real, our world is anything but predictable.
If your financial life is balanced right on a nice edge, relying on everything to go exactly as you expect it to, you aren't actually planning. You're just hoping. When it comes to money, we are dealing with human psychology, complex history, and radical, unavoidable uncertainty. Money isn't just about the math. It is literally about survival. Okay, let's dive into this. To build a true financial shield, we're going to walk through 6 key concepts today. Section 1, the casino of reality. 2, the margin of safety. 3, the danger of perfect forecasts. 4, leverage and the risk of ruin. 5, emotional limits during crashes. And finally, 6, building your financial buffer. Let's get started. Section 1, the casino of reality. Look, I want you to completely forget the idea of a sterile, perfectly predictable financial world. We have to step into the messiness of real life. And honestly, some of the absolute best examples of smart financial behavior come from a completely unlikely place. Las Vegas casinos, specifically blackjack card counters. They teach us something really profound about planning on your plan not going according to plan. See, a card counter knows a fundamental truth. Absolutely no one can know with certainty what card the dealer is going to draw next. They aren't psychic. Instead, they abandon the need for certainty altogether and focus entirely on playing the odds. They count cards just to tilt the probability ever so slightly away from the house and toward themselves. But here is the kicker. Even when the odds are heavily in their favor, they never bet every single chip sitting in front of them. Because if they're wrong on that one hand, they lose their entire bankroll, and boom, they're out of the game completely. We have to treat our money the exact same way. We are playing a game of odds, and our number one job is to protect our chips so we can stay at the table. Section 2, the margin of safety. People constantly misunderstand this term. They tend to think having a margin of safety is just some overly conservative hedge for people who are, terrified of risk. It's really not. By definition, margin of safety is raising the odds of success at a given level of risk by increasing your chances of survival. It's like a structural bridge. It's the very thing that lets you endure a wide range of potential outcomes, keeping you in the game long enough for those low probability, high reward moments to actually fall in your favor. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this profound quote by the legendary investor Benjamin Graham. He said, "The purpose of the margin of safety is to render the forecast unnecessary." I mean, think about how incredibly liberating that is. It entirely frees us from the impossible task of needing a crystal ball. If your financial system has enough room for error built into it, you don't need to perfectly predict the next recession or the next market high or exactly what year you'll retire. The margin of safety protects you from your own inability to see the future. Section 3, danger of perfect forecasts. Our inability to see the future is a massive blind spot. Yet we fall into the trap of perfect forecasts all the time. A single-point forecast requires absolute exact precision. Stock analysts love to give exact price targets. Economic forecasters give out exact GDP numbers. For example, back in 2007, the Federal Reserve predicted that the absolute worst-case economic growth for the following year would be around 1.6%. But what actually happened? The economy contracted by more than 2%. Their low-end estimate was off by almost threefold. Exact numbers are just incredibly fragile. What we actually need is a forecast range. We must leave a healthy gap between what we think will happen and what reality might actually throw at us. This gray area, pursuing a range of acceptable outcomes, is what absorbs the unknown. Section 4, leverage and the risk of ruin. So, if perfect forecasting is a trap, leverage is basically the ultimate trapdoor. Leverage is taking on debt to make your money go further. It takes routine, totally survivable risks and pushes them into something capable of producing absolute ruin. Think about how this cascade happens. Step 1, you take on debt to maximize your gains, completely masking the odds of ruin behind some rational optimism. Step 2, capitalism does what capitalism does, and a routine market drop occurs. Say housing prices fall 30%. Step 3, total wipeout. But actually, it's worse than that. It is a double wipeout. Not only are you left completely broke, but being wiped out erases your opportunity to get back into the game at the exact moment assets are incredibly cheap. You have zero cash left to take advantage of the recovery. Ruin removes you from the game entirely. This kind of catastrophic risk builds a rock-solid case for what Morganhousel calls the barbell strategy. To avoid ruin, you basically divide your financial life into two extremes. On one side, you act completely terrified. You hold cash and maintain very safe, highly liquid assets. But on the other side, you're aggressively taking risks, investing in equities, aiming for high yield. Now, I know this looks completely contradictory, but it's pure psychological brilliance. The terrified side ensures that you remain standing long enough for the risk-taking side to actually pay off. You absolutely have to survive to succeed. Section 5. Emotional limits during crashes. Look, survival isn't just about the math in your bank account. It's heavily about what happens inside your head. Ask yourself directly right now, can your psyche actually survive a 30% decline in your assets? On a spreadsheet, the math easily says yes. You can model out a historical drop, hold tight, and just wait for the recovery. But a spreadsheet doesn't have a spouse anxiously asking what on earth happened to the retirement fund. A spreadsheet doesn't look at its children and wonder if their future is suddenly imperiled. It is so easy to completely underestimate what a massive financial decline does to your actual human psyche. So the crucial point is this: your emotional limits might break long before your financial ones ever do. Housel notes that many investors don't quit during brutal bear markets because the math tells them to. They quit because they are just exhausted, physically and emotionally exhausted. Rational confidence becomes a massive liability when the agonizing, everyday reality of a crash hits. If you don't intentionally build in room for your own emotional fragility, you are going to be forced to quit at the exact moment opportunity is at its highest. Section 6. Building your financial buffer. So how do we actually protect ourselves against both market realities and our own emotional exhaustion? Well, here is a highly practical way to start building your buffer right now. When modeling his own investments, Morganhousel conservatively assumes that future returns will be 1/3 lower than the historic average. Let that sink in, 1/3 lower. He uses this massive buffer to estimate his required savings rate. If the future turns out to be far worse than the past, he already has a massive margin of safety that lets him sleep soundly at night. And hey, if the future perfectly resembles the past, he's pleasantly surprised. As Charlie Munger famously said, the best way to achieve felicity is to aim low. Next, you absolutely must eliminate single points of failure. Think about aviation. Modern jets have 4 redundant electrical systems. They can literally lose engines in midair and still glide safely to the ground. Why? Because everything that can break eventually will break. In personal finance, your biggest single point of failure is relying entirely on your next paycheck to fund your current life with zero savings to back you up. If that one single thing breaks, you are instantly counting the days to catastrophe. This means we kind of need to rethink what savings actually are. People always ask, so what are you saving for? A house? A new car? And sure, it's fine to save for those things. But your emergency buffer doesn't actually need a specific label. You are saving for a world where unpredictable curveballs happen. You're saving to protect yourself from risks you can't even envision yet. Savings without a specific goal is your ultimate shield against the inevitable unknowns of the casino of reality. Because ultimately, this entire explainer, the buffer, the barbell strategy, the margin of safety, it all serves one singular, incredibly important purpose: allowing your money to grow over time. The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. If you have built-in room for error, a sudden car breakdown or an unexpected medical emergency won't force you to liquidate your investments at a major loss. Your buffer takes the hit, and your compounding continues on, completely uninterrupted, performing its long-term magic. We've covered a lot of ground today, but it all really boils down to this final vital question. Does your plan just look good on paper, or can it actually survive reality? The next time you sit down to build a budget or evaluate a new investment, don't ask yourself if it's perfectly optimized. Ask yourself if it survives being wrong. Because surviving is the only way you get to win. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Now go out there and build some room for error into your life.